Pop quiz time. Without cheating, can you name your attorney general? And no, we're not talking about this guy. Who's your state attorney general? Are they a Democrat or a Republican? Are they up for election this year? How'd you do? If the answer is not great, you're not alone. You've likely heard how U.S. elections are hurt by low voter turnout. But there's also a problem with voters who do cast ballots. It's just harder to spot. It's called down ballot roll-off. Some voters only fill out the top of ticket candidates. Think presidents, senators, or governors, but they leave candidates further down the ballot blank. Ballots are long. There are a lot of names, a lot of offices. It's basically the same strategy some of us used for the SATs when we didn't know an answer. But experts believe down ballot roll-off has had a role in reshaping our state and local governments, and not for the better. The organization Sister District Project has been analyzing this phenomenon in 10 critical swing states. Over the last 3 presidential elections, Democrats voted down ballot far less than Republicans. In fact, Republican down ballot candidates frequently outperformed their top of ticket counterparts. Republicans are voting. They're voting down ballot. And they're winning. Down ballot races don't get the same coverage as federal or top state offices, but these races can be decided by less than hundreds of votes. There's no electoral college here. Every vote cast counts, like really counts. And the extreme Republican candidates gunning for these spots are hoping we don't figure this out.
I won in 2018 by 0.65 percentage points, and in Wisconsin, that's not that unusual, actually. The stakes in our races are very significant, though, despite the fact that our margins are small.
There are 30 attorneys general seats up for election in the midterms, and a third of the Republican candidates in these races are election deniers. And state AGs play an important role in elections. They defend state voting laws and election results. They can take legal action to address voter intimidation or election misconduct, and they're able to investigate and prosecute voter suppression, all of which sounds pretty important right now.
I can't think of a more critical time in our nation's history to vote. You have the Democrats, who are the pro-democracy party, and then you have the Republicans, who actually are anti-democracy. The road to either maintaining a democracy or losing it altogether runs right through the AG's office.
We asked candidates running in critical battleground states to help us break down this incredibly important position.
My name is Jen Jordan. I am running for Attorney General in the great state of Georgia.
I'm Dana Nessel. I'm the Michigan Attorney General, and I'm running for re-election.
My name is Kris Mayes, and I am the Democratic candidate for Arizona Attorney General.
I'm Josh Kaul. I'm the Wisconsin Attorney General, and I'm running for re-election.
My name is Aaron Ford. I am the Nevada Attorney General running for re-election.
So most of us have an idea of what lawyers do, but what does a state's top lawyer do?
The AG is the top cop and a leader on public safety issues.
It really is an independent officer who is supposed to be making sure that the Constitution of the state is being followed and the Constitution of the United States.
AG's races don't always get the attention that perhaps I think they should, but a lot of the progress that happens in our states happens through the work that's done by our state AGs.
So the powers of the state AG are broad, but they're also very specific. That's because each state has its own constitution and laws, so what an AG can do varies from state to state. But in general, AGs are their state's top legal officers, the people's lawyer and the state's lawyer. They enforce and protect state and federal laws without partisan influence.
Our job is justice, and that's justice for all, whether it's in the criminal justice system, whether it's in the context of protecting our constitutional rights, or whether it's a consumer protection issue. We seek justice on behalf of all of our residents, and we bring to justice those who have violated the law.
It's important for voters to really focus on these offices because of the wide scope that each AG deals with, and make sure that they're voting for somebody who's not going to politicize the office. AGs now are on the front lines of protecting our democracy.
And sometimes those front lines don't end at their state's borders. In fact, you're likely more impacted by AGs from states you don't even pay taxes in than you realize.
Attorneys general are really a bulwark in preventing against violations of people's rights or the law by the federal government.
And when taking on the federal government or big-time offenders, AGs prove that there's always strength in numbers.
When states band together to litigate on an issue, for instance, the opioid settlement, the Attorney General is the office that participates in those settlements.
Multi-state litigations have been on an upward trend due to the power of coordinated action over shared issues. Democratic AGs, for example, set a record high for multi-state lawsuits against the Trump administration. They also won 83% of them. However, you shouldn't underestimate the power just one state AG has.
I created the first hate crimes and domestic terrorism unit of any state AG in the United States. And unlike the federal government, I actually have laws that I can operate under that can go after domestic terrorism. They can only go after foreign terrorists. I recognize the responsibility that I have to make sure that I'm not just protecting Michigan, but I'm protecting all Americans.
But when one state AG's actions can impact the whole country, it's really important they're using their powers for good. And unfortunately, that's not always the case.
A lot of people think, well, what does the Attorney General have to do with me, right? It's not a big deal. But I think we see in terms of the abortion fights just how important the AG's role can actually be.
You can have AGs who stand up for people's rights or AGs who fight against them. The Mississippi AG led the effort in court to overturn Roe v. Wade. Other Democratic AGs and I were on the other side of that case.
That's right. One state AG started a domino effect that ended the constitutional right to an abortion for the entire country. A country where the majority of people, regardless of party affiliation, believe abortion should be legal.
The Supreme Court has ruled. That's it, right? There's nothing else to do. Well, no.
By overturning Roe v. Wade and the constitutional right to an abortion, the Supreme Court handed over the question of abortion legality back to the states.
We can take guidance from Justice Alito saying, well, this is for the states. In Georgia, the state constitution has always had a stronger right of privacy. And so from my perspective, I believe that this law is unconstitutional under Georgia's constitution.
But when Roe fell, it left chaos in its wake. Trigger bans snapped into place to block abortion access, and anti-choice politicians rushed to introduce new abortion bans and restrictions.
There's a person running against me. She would prosecute and imprison women who seek abortions.
But some states are navigating abortion laws that predate Roe, some that go as far back as the late 1800s, notably a time before women could even vote. And in the post-Roe era, pro-choice AGs have been crucial to protecting reproductive rights in this country.
We're fighting to restore access to safe and legal abortion, but a different AG would have different priorities. We have got this 19th century abortion ban in Wisconsin that my opponent thinks should go back into effect and be enforced.
My opponent wants to implement a 1901 ban on abortion that would eliminate all abortion rights in Arizona and would allow prosecutors to put doctors, nurses, and midwives in prison for up to 5 years.
I've taken the position that not only would I not prosecute women, doctors, nurses for an abortion, but that I would do everything in my power to protect women, not just women who live in my state, but women who come to my state from other states where their states outlaw it.
For those living in states with restrictions or even outright bans on abortion, states preserving their reproductive rights and healthcare have become havens. In fact, Attorney General Nessel, Attorney General Ford, and 21 other AGs joined a multi-state coalition that seeks to protect U.S. abortion access after Roe.
We've seen a Supreme Court that has taken us back 50 years, and my office is having to defend our statutory scheme that allows for women to continue to have bodily autonomy.
The coalition has been fighting to protect the right to interstate travel to obtain an abortion.
As some Republican-led states look to advance policies that would make it a crime for their residents to receive an abortion, Senate Republicans this week blocked a Democratic bill that would guarantee the constitutional right to travel across state lines to access reproductive care.
If someone can't get an abortion or necessary reproductive health care in their state, The coalition wants to ensure that every U.S. citizen has the right to access it elsewhere.
And that's why these races are so crucial, because they impact people's rights, they impact our safety, and they impact our health.
AGs can even support a pathway to return the question of abortion's legality back to the voters.
We decided that we weren't okay what the United States Supreme Court did, so we are changing the laws ourselves. And we worked really hard to get a ballot proposal in the books that would create reproductive freedom for all in my state.
And upholding the will of the voters is at the forefront of this election. After 50 years, Roe v. Wade was overturned, fueled by extreme beliefs held by the few, not the majority of U.S. voters. And elections, unfortunately, got us here. For decades, Republicans have targeted crucial but less followed down-ballot races for their ability to reshape state laws, consolidate power, and ultimately control elections. Republicans showed up and voted for their candidates, and Democrats didn't.
The people who are actively working to take away our rights are the ones that are on the ballot this year, right? Now, we elected people to help us in the last time around. Now we need to take power away from the people who are hurting us.
But it's not too late. This midterm election can also be our greatest defense. We just need to vote, because our chances are running out.
In 2020, we saw something that was really unprecedented, which is a sitting president attempting to overturn the results of our elections. And the system held up in 2020. There was lawsuit after lawsuit that was brought. And in Wisconsin, we won every single case. I'm proud to have been one of the AGs who stood up for the will of the voters. But some of them were Republicans in key roles where they did the right thing. What we've seen since then, though, is Republicans effectively purging those people from their party.
AGs Nessel, Kaul, and Ford are Democratic incumbents, meaning they're the current attorneys general in their states. They're fighting to hold the positions from the same Republican extremism they fought against.
So I'm running against Matthew DePerno, and this is a guy who was hand-selected personally by Donald Trump. DePerno is the one who actually orchestrated the Antrim County lawsuits.
The Antrim County lawsuits were an integral part in spreading 2020 election disinformation, resulting in attempts to decertify election results in multiple swing states.
Donald Trump came to Michigan, put on a large rally for him.
Remember, this is not just about 2022. This is about making sure Michigan is not rigged and stolen again in 2024.
Attorney General Kaul's opponent has said he'd enforce Wisconsin's draconian 19th century abortion ban, loosen gun laws, and has even aligned himself with election deniers.
Rather than distance himself from these conspiracy theories we've seen attacking our elections, he claimed that our election commissioners had broke the law and should be removed.
Kris Mayes and Senator Jen Jordan are looking to flip their state's attorney general seat from red to blue. In the 2020 presidential election, Georgia and Arizona played significant roles in Trump's election subversion scheme.
I just want to find 11,780 votes because we won the state. I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break.
It could not be more clear than it is in Arizona just how important the Attorney General's office is to protecting not just our democracy here in Arizona, but American democracy.
The Fox News Decision Desk is calling Arizona for Joe Biden. That is a big get for the Biden campaign.
When Arizona went blue for Joe Biden in 2020, voter fraud conspiracies followed. Fortunately, the Republican governor and the Democratic Secretary of State worked together to certify the results. And then, the Republican-led state Senate did something unprecedented. They handed Arizona's ballots to a private company to audit.
If we take a look at the presidential race, Trump actually loses 261 votes from the official votes. Biden gains 99.
Ultimately, the audit backfired. But Republican state officials came very close to undermining Arizona's voters, which could have changed the election's outcome. Come 2024, these same people don't want to fail a third time.
I'm running against an opponent who wants to decertify the 2020 election, and he would like to eliminate vote by mail. In Arizona, 90% of us vote by mail now.
While serving in Georgia's state Senate, Jen Jordan had a front row seat to Trump's election subversion scheme.
In December of 2020, I was present for a Senate hearing where Rudy Giuliani and Trump's legal team came down and they made this bogus presentation.
But there's more than ample evidence to conclude that this election was a sham.
It seemed so unserious to me that this guy, John Eastman, was telling these Republican state senators that, yeah, you have the power and the obligation under the Constitution to throw away the state of electors and choose your own people.
Jen Jordan was one of the Georgia Democrats who risked her safety to fight against Trump and his allies' attempt to overturn the election. Ultimately, the Republican Secretary of State certified the results in defiance of Trump's orders, but he was later stripped of his power to do so again.
We came so close and really dodged a bullet. And I think that we don't need to just kind of pat ourselves on the back and say, oh, look at us, we survived. I think what we should have learned from that is just how fragile our democracy is.
Put simply, the stakes couldn't be higher.
We're on the precipice of danger. Look at what's happening across the country with people taking us back to before the civil rights movement. Look at what's happening with the respect of human dignity, where you can't say gay in Florida. These are examples of regressive approaches that people who are running for offices are winning in their primaries, and we cannot indulge that.
Every vote this midterm is crucial to elect a Democrat we need to protect everything from human rights and the environment to reproductive rights and gun safety, even democracy itself. To protect our vote, we have to vote.
It's so incredibly important to vote in this election. If we don't, then what it sets us up for is 2024. And when we have a presidential election, whether Trump is running or somebody else, it will be the intent of people like the state AGs who can use their authority in a way that they could potentially manipulate an election.
Everything's on the line. It's not just women's rights, it's everybody's rights. It's rights, period. They want to strip rights away from people so that they can have the power, stay in power, and we absolutely cannot let them do that.
So don't leave your choice for state attorney general on your ballot blank, because fortunately, your vote here can make all the difference.